Welcome to the Shorten Anime channel. Today we'll dive into the latest episode of The Great Ruler. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe to support the channel. The Great Ruler Season 1 Episode 54. In the ancient forest, giant trees towered into the sky. The thick branches and leaves grew outwards and gave the impression that they were covering the sky. Moreover, shocking roars would bring about powerful spiritual energy fluctuations when they were heard from time to time in this boundless forest. Roar. Currently, somewhere within the forest, Mu Chen was staring in surprise at the spiritual beast in front of him. The spiritual beast's body was covered with a golden color. It had a shape similar to a cow and even had a golden horn on top of its head. However, its tail was close to a crocodile's tail and had many sharp spikes. As it swung around, it caused the wind to whistle and the air seemed to be torn apart. Golden crocodile, middle-ranked spiritual beast. It had strength comparable to a spiritual rotation stage late phase. Furthermore, the golden scales that covered its body made it impregnable. Beside the golden crocodile, there was a giant black tiger as well. Although it was not as bold and powerful when compared to the golden crocodile, it still possessed the strength of the spiritual rotation stage middle phase. Leave this big guy to me. You can deal with the other. Mu Chen pointed at the golden crocodile. Although he had the ability to resolve the situation by himself, this would not benefit Mo Ling. Since everybody required honing their abilities to improve, it would not be beneficial for him to protect Mo Ling too much. Otherwise, it would limit the latter's progress. Okay, Mo Ling nodded. He also understood that he could not rely on Mu Chen for everything. If he didn't improve his strength, he would only be a burden to Mu Chen. Seeing this, Mu Chen no longer said anything. He immediately lunged over towards the golden crocodile. As he extended two of his fingers, the fingertips shone a golden light. An extremely sharp and overbearing aura emitted from them. Roar! The golden crocodile roared as it noticed Mu Chen rushing over. It lashed its tail, which was strong enough to crush boulders, fiercely towards Mu Chen and appeared to hit him. However, its tail mysteriously passed through Mu Chen's body, for little did it know, the thing it had hit had actually been an afterimage. Up here! Mu Chen moved swiftly and appeared above the golden crocodile's head. He smiled slightly, and his spiritual energy erupted out. The energy forcibly made the golden crocodile collapse on the ground. Then his fingers stabbed mercilessly into the golden crocodile's head. Clang! Sparks burst out. Mu Chen's fingers, that were hardened like tempered steel, actually penetrated through the golden crocodile's tough golden scales. Fresh blood instantly sprayed out. Roar! The golden crocodile instantly entered a frenzy due to it being severely injured. However, no matter how it struggled, it failed to touch Mu Chen's phantom-like figure. With the latter's strength, it was quite easy to deal with the spiritual rotation stage late-phase spiritual beast. In 2 short minutes, the golden crocodile was completely covered with its own blood. Finally, it stopped struggling and crashed onto the ground, which instantly shook due to the impact. Mu Chen clapped his hands and squatted down. He extracted a spiritual beast soul essence, which was shining a golden light from the golden crocodile's head. As the spiritual beast's soul essence emerged, a faint golden light shot out and entered the symbol on Mu Chen's forehead. The dark red symbol instantly brightened up. This item, created by the Northern Heavens Spiritual Academy, is quite unusual. Seeing this, Mu Chen frowned. He could detect that the golden light was quite subtle. Thus, it did not affect the spiritual beast's soul essence overall. Moreover, it seemed that the symbol would actively absorb any spiritual energy nearby that was not bound to a spirit beast in order to achieve the effect of ranking up. Furthermore, the symbol rejected the spiritual aura within a human's body. In other words, it was ridiculous for anyone to use their own spiritual energy to increase the symbol. Mu Chen held on to the spiritual beast's soul essence. A middle-rank spiritual beast's soul essence wasn't something he would care about. But just when he was about to place it inside his mustard seed bracelet, he detected a black light surging through the center of his palm and held on to the spiritual beast's soul essence. Then, to Mu Chen's dismay, the spiritual beast's soul essence quickly turned dim. With a banging sound, it scattered away into lights. After the black light absorbed the spiritual beast's soul essence's energy, it returned back into Mu Chen's body. Mu Chen stared dumbfounded at the scene. He immediately recovered from the shock. It was the 9 Netherbird. The spiritual beast's soul essence has a small effect of helping me recover. In the future, you should hunt more and speed up my recovery. The 9 Netherbirds' thoughts was conveyed in Mu Chen's mind. "You're really rude." Mu Chen curled his lips and spoke. "If it wasn't for you borrowing my strength last time, I wouldn't be in such a weak state in the first place." The 9 Netherbird replied coldly. "Okay, I'll try my best." Mu Chen shook his head helplessly. It really wasn't great to owe the 9 Netherbird a favor. If it was before, he could ignore it, but now he could deal with a bit of exploitation. Besides, if the 9 Netherbird recovered quickly, he would have an ultimate life-saving measure, even if he did not want to utilize this power. "Since I've benefited from you a bit, I'll be kind and tell this to you. You've already been targeted." "Oh?" Mu Chen's eyes narrowed. He immediately smiled as he looked behind him at the forest. These people were quite fast. It seemed that his rank 3 symbol was quite attractive. Mu Chen stopped his conversation with the 9 Netherbird and turned his gaze over towards Mo Ling. For Mo Ling, his strength was close to the black tiger spiritual beast. Therefore, it would be quite difficult for him to deal with it. As they clashed against each other, injuries appeared on his body. However, it was evident that the black tiger's spiritual beast suffered far worse injuries. The battle between the man and the spiritual beast lasted for a while. The black tiger's spiritual beast finally couldn't bear it and struggled as it collapsed. Then Mo Ling rushed over and delivered a heavy blow. He killed it completely. Mo Ling sat on the corpse of the black tiger's spiritual beast and wiped the blood off his face. He directed an embarrassed smile to Mu Chen for delaying them for so long here. Swish. At this moment, numerous black lights suddenly stormed out from the forest and shot off towards Mo Ling's vital points. This attack was too swift and abrupt. Therefore, Mo Ling failed to perceive it and could only watch as the black lights grew larger within his eyes. Boom. But just when the black lights were about to hit Mo Ling's body, a golden light flew over and appeared in front of Mo Ling. It allowed the black lights to hit it. Clang, clang! The golden light was really the golden crocodile's corpse. As the black lights made contact with the corpse, they bounced off while making clanging sounds. Mo Ling's face instantly changed. He hurriedly stood up and stared fearfully into the forest. If it wasn't for Mu Chen, he would have probably been injured heavily. "Who's there?" He stood up and shouted out angrily. Mu Chen frowned and said, "You've sneakily followed us for so long already, yet you're reluctant to reveal your appearances?" "Oh ho ho! As expected for a person who obtained a seated entry, you're indeed quite capable." From the forest, sounds of laughter rang out. Then 3 figures rushed out and landed on a branch. They stared down at Mu Chen and Mo Ling with gazes as if they had spotted prey. Mo Ling was shocked when the 3 figures revealed themselves. This is because these 3 individuals came from the same escort platform as them. In addition, they were all at the spiritual rotation stage late phase. 3 spiritual rotation stage late phase. Mo Ling's heart sank. These 3 individuals were in no way inferior to Liu Mubai. If it was only one person, it would be easy to deal with them. But with all 3 of them, even Mu Chen would find it quite troubling. Although Mo Ling knew that Mu Chen had once killed a heavenly fusion stage powerhouse in the northern spiritual realm, it was still just a rumor. That strength might not have belonged to Mu Chen. Therefore, it was uncertain if Mu Chen could use that strength a second time. Thus, with Mu Chen's spiritual rotation stage late phase strength, it would be easy for him to deal with one person who was at the same level as him. But if it was 3, Brother Mu. Mo Ling approached Mu Chen, and his voice was filled with worries. He knew that it would be simple for Mu Chen to leave by himself, even if all 3 joined forces. However, it would be troublesome if Mu Chen had to bring him away as well. "Brother Mu, why don't we go our separate ways?" Mo Ling gritted his teeth and said in a low voice. He felt slightly uncomfortable for being a burden to Mu Chen. With the current situation, there's no need to do so. Mu Chen directed a smile at Mo Ling. If they thought 3 people at the spiritual rotation stage late phase were able to force him to abandon his companion and escape, then they were underestimating him. "This friend over there? I'm Jay Qing. Oh ho ho, we're quite interested in your rank 3 symbol. Why don't you hand over the symbol to us and we'll let you leave? This way, everybody will be happy, and it'll be better for both of us, don't you reckon?" Among the 3 individuals, a boy in gray clothes smiled at Mu Chen. The other 2 boys at spiritual rotation stage late phase stared mockingly at Mu Chen. It was evident that they did not believe Mu Chen had the ability to escape from their hands. Mu Chen stared at the 3 of them. A hint of sharpness flashed through his eyes. He knew that these fellows followed him because of his rank 3 symbol. Furthermore, there were still a few people sneaking around behind them. It was obvious that there were many people targeting him. After all, who told him to have a rank 3 symbol? Also, his companion was much weaker than the other 3 seeded entry candidates. A person like him was easily viewed as the weakest target. "Mo Ling, stand back," Mu Chen said softly. Hearing this, Mo Ling's face changed. Does this mean Mu Chen is planning to fight? But there's a total of 3 people on the opposite side. Although he was slightly concerned, he still nodded and retreated cautiously. "Oh, not bad. Does this mean he's planning to fight all 3 of us by himself?" Seeing this, the 3 individuals let out a mocking smile. How arrogant. Geiqing also let out a faint smile. The eyes he used to stare at Mu Chen turned cold. He immediately waved his hand and said, "Since this friend has so much confidence in himself, we should entertain him for a while. This way, we can prevent people from acting this arrogant just because they obtained a seeded entry." The other 2 also grinned and clenched their palms. A powerful spiritual energy fluctuation erupted out. Then the 3 of them exchanged gazes before charging over at the same time. As the trio swooped down like a hawk, violent spiritual energy enveloped Mu Chen completely. They wanted the boy in front of them to know that he couldn't act arrogant here just because he obtained a seeded entry. Fusing themselves with the dense spiritual energy, the 3 figures fiercely pounced towards Mu Chen like a tiger springing towards its prey. As they passed through the sky, violent winds began to form and rumble out from their fists in an attempt to envelop Mu Chen. Although the trio spoke demeaningly, they were merciless once they attacked. It was evident that they were somewhat afraid of Mu Chen. After all, it was certain that a person who had obtained a seeded entry wasn't someone simple. The spiritual academies that they had come from also had seeded entries. However, they lost in the competition for it. This was enough to explain the strength required to obtain such an entry. Although they were uncertain how powerful the spiritual academy Mu Chen had come from was, it was never wrong to be cautious. But against these 3 men, Mu Chen's handsome face remained calm. He only moved the moment the 3 attacks were about to descend on him. In the instant that Mu Chen moved, an afterimage appeared. The winds from the trio's powerful fists roared and smashed the afterimage into nothingness. An afterimage? Once their attacks missed, Geiqing and the others' faces changed. Swish! However, as their faces were changing, Mu Chen's figure had already appeared in front of one of them, as if he had been a ghost. A golden light shone from his 2 fingers that remained extended like a sharp weapon. Then, like a shining divine spear, it tore through the air and charged towards the boy's throat. After seeing how sharp Mu Chen's finger attack was, the boy's eyes also changed. He ferociously changed his hand from a fist to a palm, and dense spiritual energy surged out. Sorrowful palm! The boy's strength wasn't weak. He also had plenty of experience. Although Mu Chen's speed was beyond his expectations, he did not panic and immediately counterattacked as he waited for the other 2 companions' support. Swish! But when the dense palm attack was about to collide with Mu Chen's attack, the latter's eyes flashed and the figure faded away again. The boy's palm attack missed and his eyes narrowed suddenly. He hurriedly turned his body and was somewhat surprised to see a golden light erupt from behind him. In the end, it landed on his shoulder fiercely. The dazzling finger attack was like a sharp spear. It directly pierced through the boy's shoulders, and fresh blood sprayed out in all directions, causing the boy to let out a scream as he flew backwards. "Brother Mu, amazing!" Seeing this, Mo Ling's eyes were filled with surprise. It was apparent that Mu Chen's strength had vastly surpassed his power from the time when he had fought against Liu Mabai. In a few moments, a spiritual rotation in stage late-phase student was completely defeated by Mu Chen. This made Geiqing and the other person's eyes jump. A hint of uneasiness filled their hearts. The person they thought of as a weakling was actually this tricky. "Let's do this together. He's extremely fast. We should not get separated by him, so he can defeat us individually," Geiqing shouted out. The other spiritual rotation stage late-phase student nodded his head solemnly. Then, the 2 of them unleashed fierce attacks towards Mu Chen from both sides. But against the 2 of them teaming up, Mu Chen's Shadow Spirit Step was activated once again, and his body retreated like a phantom. He directly avoided the fierce attacks from the 2 of them. 9 Sword Dance! Once he noticed Mu Chen's phantom-like movements, a hint of coldness flashed through Geiqing's eyes. He suddenly changed seals and dense spiritual energy surged out. Then it formed into 9 spiritual energy swords. Swish! Once these long swords were condensed, they shot out and flanked Mu Chen. The sharp sword aura easily ripped through the air. Seeing this, Mu Chen's eyes revealed a touch of surprise. The spiritual art that Gei was displaying was certainly not low in tier. The people that came from large spiritual academies truly had an amazing background. Daluo Palm, the other spiritual rotation stage late phase student, immediately shouted out once he noticed Mu Chen being slowed down by Gei. Dense spiritual energy instantly formed into a handprint of pure spiritual energy and smashed down angrily towards Mu Chen. But when he saw this, Mu Chen let out a cold snort from within his heart. He circulated the great pagoda art, and a faint black light barrier emerged on the surface of his body. The black light seemed to vaguely form a tower-like shape. Clang, clang. The 9 spiritual energy swords chopped down at the blurry black light tower. However, the light tower did not budge at all. Immediately after this, the spiritual energy handprint smashed down, yet it also failed to harm the light tower. This powerful defense made Gei and the other students' expressions change. Boom! But Mu Chen ignored the 2 individuals whose expressions were once again changing significantly. Powerful fist winds surged as 2 black light seals emerged on the surface of his fists. Then, Mu Chen punched out, and an overbearing and violent spiritual energy bombarded the 2 of them. Seeing this, Gei and the other hurriedly expelled their spiritual energy in order to send out a punch to counter the blast. Dong! The overbearing winds from by the 2 limitless death seals collided against Gei and the other students' attack. Spiritual energy swept out and forced the 2 of them to retreat a couple of steps. What an overbearing spiritual energy! As they were knocked back, Gei and the others were shocked. Mu Chen was at the same spiritual rotation stage late phase like them, yet he actually obtained the upper hand when facing the 2 of them. Just when Gei and the other student were astonished, an exceedingly violent and fiery spiritual energy fluctuation emerged in front of them. They hurriedly looked over and noticed a 30-meter-tall, fiery spiritual array forming just in front of Mu Chen. A spiritual array? As they looked at the spiritual array's diagram array, Gei and the other revealed a horrified expression. This guy was a spiritual array master as well? Roar! A tiger's roar resounded within the crimson light array, and in the next instant, a blazing tiger carrying violent spiritual energy stormed out of it and charged over to the trio. Let's attack together. Sensing the violent spiritual energy within the flame tiger's body, Gei hastily cried out, 9 sword dance! Daluo Palm! The 2 of them instantly released their strongest attacks. Finally, the billowing spiritual energy crashed into the flame tiger that was charging over. Hot air waves swept out, and the leaves on the ground instantly ignited without need of a fire. Then Gei and the other students staggered backwards a dozen steps. It's too hard to deal with him. Let's hurry and retreat. Gei's face was completely pale. Even when they used all their strength, they weren't able to get the upper hand against Mu Chen. It was evident that they had estimated Mu Chen's strength incorrectly. At this moment, it was best for them to retreat quickly. Swish! But just when this idea appeared in their minds and they prepared to retreat, a sound of winds breaking rang out. Then they noticed a blurry figure standing in front of them. The 2 fingers emitting out a golden light brought forth sharp winds as they stopped in front of their throats. The 2 of them instantly froze. They did not dare to make the slightest action. In their eyes, panic surged out. You actually wanted to rob others with such abilities? Aren't you overestimating yourself? Mu Chen smiled as he stared at the 2 pale faces. You! Gei gnashed his teeth and stared fiercely at Mu Chen. Mu Chen smiled faintly, and he changed his hands from 2 fingers to a palm. Then he smacked down heavily on both of their chests. The powerful winds directly sent them flying away. A mouthful of blood sprayed out, and the atmosphere instantly became depressed. Next up, you should know what you will have to do, right? Mu Chen asked softly as he squatted down in front of them. Gei stared at Mu Chen's smile and felt a chill within his heart. He exchanged gazes with the other person and could only grit his teeth unwillingly. A light beam emitted out from the symbol on their forehead and entered the symbol on Mu Chen's forehead. This made the latter's symbol turn brighter. On the contrary, their symbols turned quite dim and seemed like it was about to disappear. Mu Chen stood up and called Mo Ling over. He allowed Mo Ling to absorb the spiritual aura within the symbol of the unfortunate fellow, who had been wounded by him earlier. Everyone, if anyone wishes to rob my symbol's spiritual aura, I'll welcome it. However, I hope that every one of you will be prepared before you target me. These 3 fellows are examples. Mu Chen lifted his head and directed a smile at the forest behind him. He could sense the hidden aura of the people who followed Gei Qing and were planning to rob him. The forest was completely silent. In the darkness, a few people's eyes flashed and intended to retreat. The person in front of them was too strong. Even though he was only at the spiritual rotation stage late phase, he is able to easily defeat 3 opponents at the same level. Perhaps this guy could only be dealt with by an expert who had entered the territory of the spirit stage. After Mu Chen's words faded away, he did not bother to stay in the area. The effect of setting an example for others should be quite effective. Although he wanted to increase his symbol's rank, these people only possessed rank 1 symbols. Obviously, he wasn't interested in them, as it would take too much time. Let's go. Mu Chen glanced at the trio once more. Then he gestured towards Mo Ling and headed into the depths of the ancient forest. Gei Qing and the others stared at Mu Chen's fading figure. All 3 of them gnashed their teeth. They originally thought that this matter could be easily resolved, but in the end, they were the ones to suffer. What should we do now? That guy is too powerful. I'm afraid nobody within the spiritual rotation stage is his opponent. One of them let out a bitter laugh as he stared at Mu Chen's silhouette. A hint of coldness flashed through Gei Qing's eyes. He gritted his teeth and said, "He is definitely amazing, but it isn't to the point where nobody can defeat him." "You have a plan?" the other 2 asked in surprise. Let's find my big brother. He is a person who participated in the spiritual road. As of now, he has already entered the spirit stage. Wouldn't it be simple for him to defeat that bastard? Gei Qing sneered. Participated in the spiritual road. Spirit stage? The 2 boys could not help but exclaim loudly. A hint of shock remained in their eyes. It was apparent that they did not expect Gei Qing to have such a powerful big brother. Follow me. I have a spirit board on me, so I can sense the position of my big brother. He should be in the same area as us. When the time comes, I will make that guy spit out everything he has eaten. Gei Qing stood up as he gritted his teeth. Then he headed towards the opposite direction. Seeing this, the other 2 boys quickly followed. "Brother Mu, there won't be any more trouble, right?" Mo Ling asked Mu Chen as he followed him. However, he would look back cautiously from time to time. The trio earlier was pretty strong. Compared to them, the people in the rear were nothing. Therefore, there won't be anyone attacking us for now. Mu Chen smiled as he looked into the distance. But as we enter the depths of the Northern Heavens world, we'll start encountering powerful individuals. There are at least tens of thousands of students entering this place. Among them, there are a few powerful characters that came from the spiritual road. At that time, the examination will have truly begun. Mo Ling could not help but let out a bitter laugh. To stand out from their respective spiritual academies and obtain a 5 Great Academies entry, they must possess some ability. With so many powerful individuals, the competition was truly unthinkable. At this moment, Mu Chen slowly exhaled. His black eyes were quite abstruse. In the spiritual road, he had many enemies. Who knows how many of them he would meet here? Since those guys passed through the final part of the spiritual road, their strength would soar. Perhaps they had already broken through to the spirit stage. Mu Chen pursed his lips. He did not want to lose to an opponent that he had defeated before. Even if they had passed through the spiritual road and obtained the most important spiritual energy empowerment, he, Mu Chen, would let them understand one thing. It does not matter whether he had lost a year of cultivation due to the spiritual road, nor does it matter that he did not obtain the spiritual road's final spiritual energy empowerment. Since he was able to make them surrender in the spiritual road, he could do the same in reality as well. Mu Chen clenched his hands slowly. It seemed that it was time for him to condense the 3rd limitless death seal. When he fought against Liu Jingshan, Mu Chen has once condensed 4 limitless death seals by borrowing the 9 Netherbird's strength. The power was quite extraordinary. For the current Mu Chen, it was evident that he did not have the ability to condense 4 seals. However, he probably had the ability to condense the 3rd seal. If Mu Chen was successful in condensing the 3rd seal, even a spirit stage initial phase powerhouse would have to take shelter when he activated it with his current strength. That wraps up the content for today's episode. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe to the channel to get notifications for the next episode. For now, goodbye, and see you next time.